She was the girl everyone crossed the street to avoid. The girl whose face made mothers cover their children's eyes. The girl they whispered about in hushed tones, calling her cursed, broken, a monster hiding behind human skin. But one rainy afternoon, as she stood alone outside a charity clinic begging for medicine she couldn't afford, a billionaire's car stopped. He stepped out, looked at her scarred, one-eyed face, and instead of turning away like everyone else, he fell to his knees right there in the rain, crying words no one expected. "I want you. I've been searching for you." What happened next would expose buried secrets, challenge an entire town's cruelty, and prove that sometimes the most broken hearts hold the greatest capacity for love. Before we continue, take a second to subscribe if stories like this matter to you. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. The town of Asheford, Montana was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business before breakfast was finished. A small town nestled between mountains and wheat fields, where gossip traveled faster than the wind and judgment came quicker than mercy. Beautiful on the surface, church steeples rising against blue skies, white picket fences lining quiet streets, children playing in parks. But beneath that surface lived something darker. Prejudice, fear, and a cruelty that dressed itself up as concern. And in the shadows of that cruelty lived a girl named Iris, 22 years old, thin as a whisper, with brown hair that fell past her shoulders and hands that trembled whenever strangers looked her way. But it wasn't her hair or her hands people stared at. It was her face. One side of her face, where her eye should have been, there was only scarred tissue, puckered and discolored, stretching from her temple down to her cheek. An empty socket that she tried to hide behind long bangs, behind scarves, behind anything that might make people stop staring, stop whispering, stop judging. The accident happened when she was 7. A house fire that took everything. Her parents, her little brother, her home, her childhood, and half her face. The doctors said she was lucky to survive. But Iris never felt lucky. She felt marked, branded, set apart from the world in the cruelest way possible. After the fire, she was placed with her aunt, Margaret, a bitter woman who saw Iris as a burden she never asked for. "You're lucky I took you in," Margaret would say almost daily. "No one else wanted you. Not with that face." The words cut deeper than any flame ever could. Iris grew up believing she was unlovable, a mistake, something to be hidden away. School was torture. Children called her Cyclops, monster, freak. Teachers tried to intervene, but their pity was almost worse than the cruelty. She learned to sit in the back, to keep her head down, to speak only when absolutely necessary. By the time she turned 18, she had perfected the art of invisibility. She moved through Asheford like a ghost, working night shifts at the grocery store where fewer people would see her, buying her groceries at odd hours, avoiding mirrors, avoiding eyes, avoiding life itself. Her aunt died when Iris was 20, leaving behind nothing but debt and a small, run-down apartment on the edge of town. Iris lived there alone, surrounded by silence and memories that refused to fade. She worked 2 jobs now, the grocery store and cleaning houses for families who made sure she came when they weren't home. They left notes, instructions, payment on the counter. They never had to see her. Everyone was more comfortable that way. But there was one place Iris went every week without fail. The Asheford Community Clinic. Not for herself, but for the others. The homeless, the addicted, the forgotten. People even more invisible than she was. She volunteered there every Saturday morning, helping sort donated clothes, serving meals, sitting with the elderly who had no one else. The clinic director, a kind older woman named Dr. Helena, was the only person in Asheford who looked at Iris and saw more than a scar. "You have a gift," Dr. Helena told her once. "You see people. Really see them. That's rarer than you think." Iris didn't feel gifted. She just felt alone. But at the clinic, surrounded by people who society had also rejected, she felt a little less like a monster. A little more like a human being. One particular Saturday in late October, the sky was heavy with rain clouds, and the wind carried the smell of wet leaves and approaching winter. Iris arrived at the clinic early. As always, her coat pulled tight around her, her hair covering the one side of her face. She helped set up the food tables, sorted through boxes of donated blankets, and smiled gently at the familiar faces who came through the door seeking warmth and a hot meal. By noon, the rain had started. A cold, relentless downpour that turned the streets into rivers and sent everyone running for cover. Iris stood under the clinic's small awning, watching the rain, when Dr. Helena approached with worry etched on her face. "Iris, we have a problem," she said quietly. "We're completely out of antibiotics. Mr. Patterson, the elderly gentleman in the back room, he has pneumonia. Without medication, I don't know if he'll make it through the weekend." Iris's heart sank. "What can we do? The pharmacy downtown sometimes donates expired medications, but they won't answer the phone. Someone needs to go in person and ask." Dr. Helena looked at her apologetically. "I can't leave. We're short-staffed as it is. Would you?" Iris hesitated. Going downtown meant walking through crowds, past shops with large windows, past people who would stare. But then she thought of Mr. Patterson, the kind old man who always thanked her for his meals and never once looked at her face with disgust. "I'll go," she said quietly. The rain soaked through her coat within minutes. She kept her head down, walking quickly through the streets, ignoring the puddles that splashed her worn shoes. The pharmacy was busy, families picking up prescriptions, children pressing their faces against the candy displays. Iris approached the counter, her voice barely above a whisper. "Excuse me, I'm from the community clinic. Dr. Helena sent me to ask if you have any antibiotics you could donate. We have a patient who..." The pharmacist, a middle-aged man with a permanent frown, cut her off. "We already donated this month. Come back next month. Please, sir. It's an emergency. He's elderly and very sick. Anything you have, even expired." I said no. His voice was sharp, dismissive. "We're a business, not a charity." People in line were staring now. Iris felt heat rising to her face, her scarred side exposed under the harsh pharmacy lights. A woman nearby pulled her child closer, whispering something Iris couldn't hear but could easily imagine. "Please," Iris tried once more, her voice breaking. "He might die. Then maybe you should have thought about that before wasting my time. Get out before I call security." Humiliation washed over her in waves. She turned and walked out, tears mixing with rain on her face. She stood outside the pharmacy, soaked and shaking, not from cold but from the crushing weight of helplessness. Mr. Patterson needed help, and she couldn't provide it. That's when she noticed the man. He was standing across the street under a black umbrella, watching her. Tall, probably in his mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit that seemed completely out of place in this small town. His car, a sleek black sedan, was parked behind him with a driver waiting inside. But it wasn't his wealth that caught her attention. It was the way he was staring at her. Not with disgust or pity, with something else. Recognition? Shock? Pain? Their eyes met across the rain-soaked street. And then, to Iris's complete confusion, the man started walking toward her. Fast, almost running, the umbrella forgotten, rain soaking his suit as he crossed the street with single-minded determination. Iris stepped back, frightened. "Sir, I..." But before she could finish, the man stopped directly in front of her. He was breathing hard, his eyes locked on her face, specifically on her scar, on her missing eye. His hands trembled as he raised one slowly, as if to touch her face, then stopped himself. "It's you," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "Dear God, it's really you." Iris's heart pounded. "I'm sorry. I think you have me confused with..." "The fire," he interrupted, his words tumbling out desperately. "The house fire in Chicago. 17 years ago. West Side. The family name was Chun. There was a little girl, 7 years old. They said everyone died. They told me everyone died." Iris froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "How do you know about that?" Tears were streaming down the man's face now, mixing with the rain. "Because I started it. I was 16. Stupid. Angry. Messing around with fireworks in the alley behind your house. I saw the fire start. I tried to put it out, but it spread so fast. I ran. I was a coward and I ran. And I've spent every single day of the last 17 years living with what I did. The world seemed to tilt. Iris staggered backward, her mind reeling. You started the fire that killed my family? I didn't know anyone was inside, he said desperately, falling to his knees right there on the wet sidewalk, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except the girl in front of him. I swear I didn't know, but I've searched for survivors. For years. Hiring investigators, checking records, hoping, praying that someone made it out. They told me everyone died. But here you are. You're alive. His hands were clasped together, his voice breaking with every word. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I took from you can never be replaced. But please let me try to make this right. I've built my entire life trying to atone for what I did. Let me help you. I want you. I need you to let me try to fix what I destroyed. Iris stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. This man, this wealthy stranger, was the reason her life had been destroyed. The reason she wore this scar. The reason she grew up alone and rejected. And now he was kneeling in the rain, begging her for a chance to make amends. People on the street had stopped to stare. Phones were out recording. Whispers rippled through the crowd. But Iris barely heard them. All she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat and the echo of words she never thought she'd hear. I want you to give me a chance to make this right. She looked down at the man kneeling before her, at his tears, his desperation, his guilt that seemed to radiate from every part of him. And for the first time in 17 years, Iris felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something she couldn't quite name. Who are you? She whispered. He looked up at her, rain dripping from his hair, hope and fear battling in his eyes. My name is Marcus Kane, and if you'll let me, I'd like to tell you everything. The rain continued to fall as the two of them stood there, connected by tragedy, separated by years of pain, and somehow, inexplicably, drawn together by fate's cruel and mysterious hand. Marcus Kane stood slowly, his expensive suit now completely soaked and ruined. He wiped the rain from his face, though it was impossible to tell where the rain ended and his tears began. Iris stared at him, her mind a chaos of emotions she couldn't sort through. Anger, confusion, disbelief, and underneath it all, a strange, unwanted curiosity. Please, Marcus said softly. Can we go somewhere to talk? Somewhere dry. Iris's first instinct was to run, to disappear back into the shadows where she'd lived for so long. But something held her in place. Maybe it was the raw honesty in his voice. Maybe it was 17 years of questions that suddenly had someone who could answer them. Maybe it was simply that she was tired of running. There's a diner, she said quietly. 2 blocks from here. Marcus gestured to his car. Let me drive you, please. She shook her head. I'll walk. You can follow if you want. She didn't trust him enough to get into his car. Didn't trust herself enough to be in an enclosed space with the man who'd destroyed everything. So she walked, her coat dripping water with every step, and behind her, the expensive sedan crawled along at walking pace, probably confusing every driver on the road. The diner was nearly empty, just a tired waitress wiping down tables and an old man nursing coffee at the counter. They slid into a booth in the back, and Iris kept her scarred side toward the wall, an automatic habit she'd perfected over the years. Marcus sat across from her, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The waitress came over. What can I get you folks? Coffee, Marcus said, and whatever she wants. Please, order anything. Iris shook her head. Just water. After the waitress left, Marcus leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. His knuckles were white. I don't know where to start. Start with the truth, Iris said, her voice harder than she felt. All of it. So he did. Marcus told her about that night 17 years ago. He'd been 16, the troubled son of wealthy parents who thought money could solve everything. He'd been angry about something he couldn't even remember now, probably something stupid and teenage. He and his friends had bought illegal fireworks, the kind that exploded with serious force. They'd been setting them off in the alley behind a row of houses, laughing, being reckless. One of them tipped over, Marcus said, his voice hollow. It shot sideways, straight into a pile of trash against the back of one of the houses. Within seconds, the whole pile was on fire. We tried to stamp it out, but it had already reached the house. The old wood just went up like it was soaked in gasoline. Iris's hands trembled in her lap. She remembered that night in fragments. The smell of smoke, her mother screaming, her father's arms around her, trying to get her out. The heat, the pain, the sound of timber crashing down. I heard sirens, Marcus continued. I panicked. I ran. Like a coward, I ran and left people to die. My friends ran too. We made a pact never to tell anyone. We were kids. We were scared. We convinced ourselves it wasn't our fault, that we didn't know anyone was inside. But people were inside, Iris whispered. My whole family was inside. I know. His voice cracked. I know. I went back the next day, watched from across the street as they pulled bodies out. 4 of them. A man, a woman, 2 children. The news said there were no survivors. I vomited in an alley. I couldn't eat for weeks. Couldn't sleep. I kept seeing their faces on the news. Your father was a teacher. Your mother worked at a library. Your brother was only 5. Tears streamed down Iris's face. She hadn't heard anyone speak their names in years. Aunt Margaret never wanted to talk about them, said it was better to forget, to move forward. I told my parents eventually, Marcus said. They hired the best lawyers money could buy. I was a minor, it was deemed an accident, the charges were reduced to almost nothing. I never served real time, just probation and community service. My parents paid settlements to avoid civil suits. Everything was swept under the rug because we were wealthy and the system protects people like us. He looked at her with haunted eyes. But I couldn't live with it. The guilt ate me alive. When I turned 18, I left home. I couldn't stand my parents' willingness to just move on and pretend it never happened. I took what money I had and started a company. Kane Solutions. We develop fire safety technology, affordable smoke detectors, fire-resistant building materials, emergency response systems. Everything I've built has been about trying to prevent what I caused. That doesn't bring them back, Iris said quietly. No, Marcus agreed. Nothing brings them back. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But 5 years ago, I hired private investigators. I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe someone had survived, that the records were wrong. I had them search every hospital, every foster system, every database, and they found nothing. Dead ends everywhere. He leaned forward, intensity burning in his eyes. Until today, I was in Asheford for a business meeting, checking on a factory we're opening here. I was leaving when I saw you standing outside that pharmacy, and I saw your face, the scar, the eye, and I knew. I just knew. There was a little girl that night, 7 years old. The report said she died, but they never found her body separately. And here you are. You're her. You survived. Iris's throat was so tight she could barely breathe. I almost didn't. I woke up in a hospital 3 weeks later. Burns covering half my body. My eye was gone. They'd already buried my family. There was no one to claim me except my aunt, my mother's sister, who made it clear every day that I was an unwanted burden. Where is she now? Marcus asked gently. Dead. 2 years ago. I've been alone ever since. She looked down at her water glass. I work 2 jobs. I live in a tiny apartment. People in this town treat me like I'm cursed. They cross the street when they see me coming. Children have nightmares about my face. I've spent 15 years believing I was a monster. You're not a monster, Marcus said fiercely. You're a survivor. You're strong and brave and... He stopped himself, shaking his head. I have no right to say any of this. I have no right to even be sitting here. No, Iris agreed. You don't. They sat in heavy silence. Finally, Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He wrote something on the back and slid it across the table. "That's my personal number," he said, "and the address of where I'm staying in town. I know I can never undo what I did. I know I destroyed your life and your family. But please, please let me try to help you now. You need surgery for your eye? I'll pay for it. You need education, a place to live, a chance at a different life? I'll provide all of it. Not because it earns me forgiveness, but because it's the absolute least I can do." Iris stared at the card but didn't touch it. "You think money fixes everything?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "I know it doesn't. My parents taught me that money fixes nothing that actually matters. But it can open doors. It can provide opportunities. It can give you choices you don't have right now." He stood slowly. "I'm staying at the Asheford Inn for the next week. Room 304. If you want to talk, if you want help, if you just want to yell at me and tell me what a terrible human being I am, I'll be there. If you never want to see me again, I'll understand that too. But Iris, I want you to know something." She looked up at him, and the intensity in his eyes took her breath away. "I've spent 17 years trying to atone for what I did. I've given millions to fire safety causes. I've helped countless families. But none of it ever felt like enough because the people I hurt most, your family, you were gone. I couldn't make it right with you. And now, by some miracle or curse, you're here. You're alive. And I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to abandon you the way I did that night." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I want you to have the life that was stolen from you. I want you to have every opportunity, every chance, every dream you've been denied. Not because I expect anything in return, but because it's what your parents would have wanted. And it's the only way I can look at myself in the mirror." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I think you're beautiful. Your scar doesn't define you. Your strength does. And that's something no fire could ever destroy." Then he was gone, leaving Iris sitting alone in the booth, the business card on the table between her trembling hands, and a storm of emotions raging inside her that felt more terrifying than any fire ever could. The next 3 days were the longest of Iris's life. She went through the motions, working her shifts, volunteering at the clinic, existing in the same patterns she'd maintained for years. But everything felt different now. The weight of knowledge pressed down on her with every breath. She knew who had destroyed her life. She knew where he was. She knew he wanted to help her. And she had absolutely no idea what to do with any of it. Mr. Patterson at the clinic recovered. Thank God. Dr. Helena had managed to get antibiotics from another source. But every time Iris saw him smile his grateful smile, she thought about Marcus's offer. How easy it would have been to accept his help. How much simpler things could become with resources behind her. But could she really take anything from the man who'd killed her family? She found herself walking past the Asheford in more times than she wanted to admit. Never going in. Just walking past. Looking up at the windows and wondering which one was room 304. Wondering if he was looking down at her. Wondering if he'd meant what he said about not walking away. On the third night, she dreamed about the fire. She hadn't had the nightmare in months, but it came back with vicious clarity. Smoke filling her lungs. Flames licking at the walls. Her mother's screams. Her father's desperate attempts to reach them. Her little brother Tommy's hand slipping from hers as the ceiling collapsed. She woke up gasping, covered in sweat. Her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She got out of bed, pulled on clothes, and before she could talk herself out of it, she was walking through the dark streets of Asheford toward the inn. It was past midnight. The town was silent except for the sound of her footsteps and the distant bark of a dog. The inn's front desk was unstaffed. Just a small bell with a sign saying, "Ring for service." Iris didn't ring it. She walked up the stairs to the third floor, her legs trembling with every step. Room 304 was at the end of the hall. She stood in front of it for a full 5 minutes, her hand raised to knock, unable to make herself complete the motion. What was she even doing here? What did she want? Answers? Money? Revenge? Closure? Before she could decide, the door opened. Marcus stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed and tired. He looked shocked to see her. "Iris, how did you know I was here?" she asked. He gestured to the peephole. I heard footsteps stop outside my door 20 minutes ago. I've been watching, hoping it was you. Hoping you'd knock. 20 minutes? She'd been standing there that long? Marcus stepped back, opening the door wider. Please, come in. She hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The room was simple but nice, certainly nicer than anywhere Iris had ever stayed. Papers were spread across the desk, a laptop open with what looked like architectural plans on the screen. There was a photo on the nightstand that caught her eye, and she walked over to it without permission. It was a newspaper clipping. The house fire. Her house. And in the margin, Marcus had written in pen, "Never forget. Never stop trying to make it right." I keep it with me everywhere, Marcus said quietly from behind her. A reminder of what I did. What I can never undo. Iris turned to face him. I had the nightmare tonight. The fire. I haven't had it in months, but tonight it came back. I woke up and I needed to talk to someone who understood. And you're the only person who knows what really happened that night. Sit down, Marcus said gently. Please. They sat on opposite ends of the small couch. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Iris started talking. She told him about the 17 years since the fire. About Aunt Margaret's cruelty. About the isolation, the bullying, the rejection. About learning to see herself as a monster because that's how everyone else saw her. About the tiny apartment, the 2 jobs, the volunteer work that made her feel almost human. Marcus listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving her face, and for the first time in her life, Iris felt truly seen. Not pitied, not feared, just seen. When she finished, Marcus spoke carefully. Can I ask you something? What do you want? Not what you think you should want. Not what's logical or makes sense. What does your heart actually want? Iris thought about it. Really thought about it. I want to not be afraid anymore. I want to walk down the street without people staring. I want to stop working myself to exhaustion just to survive. I want to know what it feels like to be normal. To have friends. To maybe, someday, have someone look at me and see something other than this scar. Then let me help you, Marcus said. I know it sounds insane. I know you have every reason to hate me. But please, let me give you the resources to build the life you deserve. Why? Iris demanded. Why do you care so much? Is it just guilt? Do you think if you fix my life, you'll sleep better at night? Yes, Marcus said bluntly. That's exactly what I think. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend this is purely altruistic. Helping you helps me sleep at night. But does that make it less valuable? If I can change your life for the better, does my motivation really matter? Iris wanted to say yes, wanted to tell him that his guilt was not her responsibility. But she was so tired of struggling, so tired of being alone. What would this help look like? She asked quietly. Marcus leaned forward, careful not to crowd her. Whatever you want it to look like. If you want surgery to reconstruct your eye socket, I'll hire the best surgeons in the country. If you want to go to school, I'll pay for it. If you want to move to a different city where no one knows your story, I'll set you up. If you want to stay here and build a better life in Asheford, I'll help you do that. You're in control. Completely. And what do you get out of it? Peace, Marcus said simply. The knowledge that maybe I didn't destroy everything that night. That something good can come from something terrible. Iris looked at him for a long time, studied his face, the genuine remorse in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly, the tension in his shoulders that spoke of years of carrying unbearable weight. I need time, she said finally. I can't make this decision right now. It's too big, too overwhelming. Take all the time you need, Marcus said immediately. I'll be here, however long it takes. Iris stood to leave, and Marcus walked her to the door. As she stepped into the hallway, she turned back. Marcus, can I ask you something? Anything. If the fire had never happened, if you'd grown up and built your company without that guilt driving you, would you have stopped to help a scarred girl begging outside a pharmacy? The question clearly hit him hard. He was silent for a long moment. I'd like to think I would have, but honestly, I don't know. The person I was before that night was selfish and privileged and blind to other people's suffering. The fire didn't just destroy your life. It destroyed who I was too. And I've spent 17 years trying to become someone better. Iris nodded slowly. At least you're honest. I owe you honesty. It's the least I can give you. She walked away down the hall, feeling his eyes on her back until she turned the corner. When she got home, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about choices and chances and whether redemption was something that could ever truly be earned. The next day, she made a decision. She called the number on Marcus's card. He answered on the first ring. "Iris, I want to start small," she said. "I'm not ready for surgery or moving or any of the big things, but there's something I need help with." "Name it." "The community clinic where I volunteer. We're always running out of supplies. Medicine, blankets, food. Dr. Helena does her best, but we barely have enough. If you want to help me, help them. Help the people who've never judged me for my face." "Consider it done," Marcus said immediately. "I'll set up a donation account today. Anything the clinic needs, they'll have it." "Thank you," Iris said quietly. "Iris, can I see you again? Not about money or plans. Just to talk." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because in 3 days, you're the first person I've been able to be completely honest with in 17 years. And that means something to me." "Okay," Iris heard herself say. "Tomorrow. The diner. 2 o'clock. That's how it started. Small meetings. Coffee. Lunch. Walks through the park when fewer people were around. At first, they talked about logistics. Marcus set up the donation account for the clinic, and within days, supplies started arriving. Dr. Helena was overwhelmed with gratitude, asking Iris how she'd managed it. Iris just said she'd found a donor who wanted to help. But the conversations between Iris and Marcus quickly moved beyond logistics. They talked about everything: their childhoods, their fears, their dreams. Marcus told her about the pressure of living up to his family name, about parents who valued image over substance. Iris told him about the loneliness of being different, about feeling like a ghost haunting her own life. "Can I ask about your eye?" Marcus said one afternoon as they sat on a bench overlooking a small lake. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to." Iris was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "The one doctor said the damage was too severe to save it. The glass and debris from the fire, combined with the burns, destroyed the tissue. They removed what was left to prevent infection. I was supposed to get a prosthetic eye, but Aunt Margaret said it was too expensive and no one would look at me anyway." "That's cruel," Marcus said softly. "That was Aunt Margaret. She wasn't physically abusive, but she made sure I knew I was worthless. That I should be grateful for the bare minimum of survival she provided." Iris touched her scar unconsciously. "I used to dream about looking normal, about surgery that could fix this. But over the years I stopped dreaming. It seemed easier to accept that this is just who I am." "What if it didn't have to be?" Marcus asked carefully. "What if you could choose? Not because you have to, not because society demands it, but because you wanted to." "I don't know," Iris admitted. "Part of me wants it so badly I can taste it. But another part of me is afraid. This scar has defined me for so long. Without it, who am I?" "You're Iris," Marcus said firmly. "Strong, kind, thoughtful, brave. The scar doesn't define you. It's just something that happened to you." She looked at him, really looked at him. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Look at me without flinching, without staring at the scar. Everyone stares. But you look at me like I'm just a person." Marcus met her eyes. "Because you are just a person. And because when I look at you, I don't just see the scar. I see everything you've survived, everything you've overcome. And that's so much more important than what any fire could do to skin and bone." Something shifted in that moment. Iris felt it, a crack in the walls she'd built around her heart. This man, who had every reason to be a villain in her story, was somehow becoming something else. Something she wasn't ready to name. Over the following weeks, they continued to meet, and Asheford began to notice. A wealthy outsider and the town's scarred outcast, spending time together. Whispers intensified. What does he want with her? Maybe he's one of those rich weirdos with strange tastes. She probably bewitched him. That's what happens when you carry a curse. The gossip reached Iris's ears, as it always did. But for the first time she found she didn't care. Let them whisper. For the first time in her life, she had someone who chose to be in her presence. Someone who sought her out. Someone who made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't a monster after all. One afternoon, Marcus asked her to come to his hotel room. He had something to show her. When she arrived, he had his laptop open with a video call waiting. "There's someone I want you to meet," he said. The face on the screen was a woman in her 50s, kind-looking, with warm eyes and a gentle smile. "Hello, Iris. My name is Dr. Sarah Mendez. I'm a reconstructive surgeon specializing in facial trauma. Marcus told me about your case, and I've been reviewing what medical records he could access. I'd like to talk to you about options, if you're interested." Iris looked at Marcus, surprised. He'd been working on this without telling her. Dr. Mendez spoke for the next 30 minutes, explaining procedures, possibilities, timelines. She emphasized repeatedly that this was Iris's choice, that there was nothing wrong with her face as it was, but that, if she wanted reconstruction, it was possible. The eye socket could be repaired, a prosthetic eye fitted that would look natural, the scarring minimized through advanced techniques. "Think about it," Dr. Mendez said kindly. "There's no rush, and whatever you decide, it doesn't change your worth as a person." After the call ended, Iris sat in silence. Marcus watched her carefully. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just wanted you to know what's possible. But if you're happy as you are, if you've made peace with your appearance, I respect that completely." "I haven't made peace with it," Iris admitted quietly. "I've just given up. There's a difference." "So what do you want to do?" Iris took a deep breath. "I want the surgery, not because I think it'll make me lovable or acceptable, but because I want to look in the mirror and see the person I was supposed to be. The person I would have been if that fire never happened." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we'll make it happen. I'll cover all the costs. You won't have to worry about anything except healing." "Why are you doing this?" Iris asked, not for the first time. "Really, the truth." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Because when I look at you, I see a second chance. Not for you. For me. You survived what I did. Against all odds, you're here. And if I can help you thrive, if I can give you even a fraction of what the fire took away, then maybe my life wasn't a complete waste. Maybe I can be something other than the coward who ran away that night." Tears gathered in Iris's eyes. "You know I can't forgive you, right? Not completely. Not yet. Maybe not ever." "I know," Marcus said softly. "And I don't expect you to. I'm not doing this to earn forgiveness. I'm doing it because it's right." "Okay," Iris whispered. "Then let's do it." The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later in Seattle, where Dr. Mendez practiced. Marcus arranged everything: a private plane, a hotel suite for recovery, round-the-clock care. He told Iris he'd be there if she wanted him, but he'd stay away if she preferred. She thought about it carefully. "I want you there," she said. "I don't understand why, but I do." When she got home, she called Marcus immediately. "Something happened today." She told him about the confrontation, about finally standing up for herself. Marcus listened, and when she finished, he said something that made her heart skip. "I'm so proud of you." 3 words. Simple. But no one had ever said them to her before. "Marcus," she said carefully, "can I ask you something? Always. When this is all over, when the surgery is done and I'm healed and I look different, will you still want to be around me? Or is this, all of this, about fixing your mistake?" There was a long pause. Then Marcus said, "Iris, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Somewhere between that first day in the rain and now, this stopped being about guilt. You've become the most important person in my life. Not because of what I did to you, but because of who you are. Your strength, your kindness, your courage. I look forward to seeing you every day. I think about you constantly. And yes, I want the surgery to happen if that's what you want. But when it's over, I'm not going anywhere. Unless you tell me to leave, I'm staying right here. Iris's breath caught. Marcus, are you saying? I'm saying I've fallen in love with you, he said quietly. I know it's complicated. I know it's messy. I know I have no right to feel this way, but I do. And after everything I've taken from you, the least I can give you is honesty. Iris sat in stunned silence. Love. He loved her. The man who'd destroyed her life now loved her. It should have felt wrong. It should have felt like a betrayal. But instead, it felt like the first right thing to happen to her in 17 years. I don't know how to respond to that, she said finally. You don't have to respond, Marcus assured her. I just needed you to know. So when we go to Seattle, when you have this surgery, you'll know it's not because I'm trying to fix a mistake. It's because I want you to have the life you deserve. And maybe, if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of that life. That night, Iris lay in bed thinking about love and forgiveness and second chances. She thought about her parents, about whether they'd approve of any of this. She thought about Tommy, her little brother, about how he'd always said she was the bravest person he knew. And she made a decision. She was going to let herself be brave one more time. She was going to let herself accept help, accept change, and maybe, just maybe, accept love. The surgery changed everything. Dr. Mendez was brilliant. The 8-hour procedure reconstructed Iris's eye socket, fitted a prosthetic eye that matched her right eye perfectly, and used advanced grafting techniques to minimize the scar tissue. When the bandages came off 3 weeks later, Iris looked in the mirror and cried. Not because she looked perfect. She didn't. The scar was still there, fainter but visible. But for the first time in 15 years, she looked like herself. Like the girl she was supposed to become. Like someone who could walk into a room without everyone staring. Marcus was there when the bandages came off. He'd been there every day of recovery, bringing flowers, reading to her, just sitting quietly when she needed silence. When she finally looked at him with both eyes open, he smiled. You're beautiful, he said simply. You always were. I look different, Iris said, touching her face gently. You look like you, Marcus replied. And that's all you ever needed to look like. Recovery took months. Physical therapy for the muscles around her new eye. Counseling to deal with the psychological impact of looking different after so long. Marcus never left. He extended his stay in Asheford indefinitely, working remotely, building a life around being there for Iris. And slowly, impossibly, Iris fell in love with him too. Not with his money or his guilt, but with his consistency, his kindness, the way he looked at her like she hung the moon, the way he made her laugh, the way he never, not once, tried to take credit for her healing, but instead insisted it was all her own strength. 6 months after the surgery, they were walking through Ashford's small downtown when they ran into a group of women who'd known Iris her whole life. The same women who used to cross the street to avoid her. They stared in shock at her transformed face. Iris? One of them said. Is that you? It's me, Iris confirmed. You look so different. What happened? Iris glanced at Marcus, who gave her an encouraging nod. I got the help I needed. I learned that I was worth more than the town believed. And I found someone who saw me as a person, not a curse. The women looked uncomfortable. Good. They should feel uncomfortable. Well, you look wonderful, another woman said, trying to smile. We're so happy for you. Are you? Iris asked pointedly. Because I'm the same person I was 6 months ago. The same person you've been avoiding for 17 years. The only thing that's changed is my face. And if that's all it takes for you to treat me with basic human decency, then maybe you should think about what that says about you. She walked away with Marcus beside her, and she'd never felt more powerful. Later that evening, as they sat on the bench by the lake where they'd had so many conversations, Marcus took her hand. Iris, I need to ask you something. Okay. Do you think you could ever forgive me? Really forgive me? Iris thought about it carefully. I think I already have. Not because you earned it. Not because the surgery or the money or the support made up for what happened. But because holding on to that anger was destroying me. My family wouldn't want me to spend my life hating. They'd want me to live, really live. And I can't do that while carrying 17 years of rage. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Marcus said quietly. Probably not, Iris agreed. But I'm not forgiving you for your sake. I'm forgiving you for mine. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Can I ask you something else? Always. What are we doing? This. What is this? Iris smiled. I think we're two broken people who found each other in the worst possible way and somehow built something good from the ashes. I think we're proof that redemption is possible. And I think, Marcus Kane, that I'm in love with you, which is probably the craziest thing to ever happen to either of us. Marcus laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. It's definitely crazy. So what do we do about it? We live, Marcus said simply. We build a life together. Not because the past demands it, but because the future deserves it. I like that, Iris said softly. They kissed as the sun set over the lake, two survivors of the same tragedy, finally finding peace in each other's arms. That night, in the home they now shared on the outskirts of town, Marcus got down on one knee. I know I don't deserve you, he said. I know our story started in the worst possible way, but you've become my redemption, my purpose, my everything. Will you marry me? Iris looked at the ring, at the man who destroyed and rebuilt her life in equal measure, and said yes. Their wedding was small. Dr. Helena was there, along with the people from the resource center, the clients who'd become friends, the lives they'd touched. No one from Marcus's wealthy family came. They'd disowned him years ago for, in their words, wasting his potential on charity work and a scarred girl. Marcus didn't care. He'd found a better family. As Iris stood at the altar in a simple white dress, looking at Marcus with both eyes open, she thought about her parents, about Tommy, about the life that was stolen and the life she'd built from the ruins. She liked to think they'd be proud, not of the surgery or the money or even the love story, but of her strength, her resilience, her refusal to let tragedy define her forever. The scars were still there, fainter but present, a reminder of where she'd been. But they were no longer all she saw when she looked in the mirror. Now she saw possibility. She saw strength. She saw a future. I love you, Marcus whispered as they were pronounced husband and wife. I love you too, Iris replied, and she meant it. The moral of this story is simple but profound. Our scars, whether visible or hidden, do not define our worth. Redemption is possible, even in the darkest circumstances. And sometimes the people who hurt us most can become the people who help us heal, not because it erases the past, but because it creates a new future. Love doesn't erase tragedy, but it can grow in the ashes. And that growth, that stubborn refusal to let the fire win, is the most powerful form of survival. Do you think Iris should have married the same man who was behind the demise of her parents and siblings? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening to this story of loss, redemption, and unexpected love. If it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us all that beauty lives deeper than what the eyes can see, and that second chances are always possible, even when we least expect them. See you in the next one.